Thank you for taking care of the stupid old. My brother-in-law and his wife had promised to move with my mother-in-law, who has dementia. However, they dumped her belongings and swiftly left, forcing us to take care of her. My husband and I were in shock. But my mother-in-law was nodding with a smile. However, today's smile from her wasn't her usual confused one. My mother-in-law waved at their car with a grin. And then she loudly said, "They don't have a home anymore." Huh? No more home? What in the world is she talking about? What was this surprising counterattack from my mother-in-law on my brother-in-law and his wife who were looking forward to moving? My name is Christine Parker. I'm 34 and work at a company. My husband, David, and I shared the same hobbies, and we both tragically lost our parents early in life. David lost his father during his college years, while I lost both my parents in a car accident when I was young. We both had longings for a warm family, so we got married pretty quickly. At the time of our wedding, my mother-in-law told me, "From now on, think of me as your real mother. You can always rely on me." It was comforting for someone like me, who had lost her parents at a young age, to hear such words. After our marriage, we frequently visited her. Those were happy days, but I had one concern. It was David's elder brother, Michael. Michael, 2 years older than David, was 36 at the time we got married and was still single, living at home. I had no problem with him living at home, but Michael was the complete opposite of David in terms of personality. While David is reserved and humble, Michael judges people by their appearance and status. If he deems someone beneath him, he's outright rude, a typical jerk. Moreover, Michael looks down on David and me, working at an average company, and ridicules us every time he sees us. "What? You're here again? Must be nice to have so much free time. I, working in a trading company, can't afford to be so leisurely." Even though we were visiting to see my mother-in-law, Michael would often say such things. "I'm really sorry about the rude things Michael says. I know I spoiled him, but lately, he doesn't listen to me at all." My mother-in-law always apologized in his absence. "I know I might be a pain sometimes, but I genuinely enjoy talking to you, Christine. Do you think you'll visit again?" She had said that to me. We didn't want to leave her alone with Michael, and more than anything, I genuinely enjoyed our chats with her. So, David and I continued to visit her often. Then, about a year later, we suddenly heard that Michael was getting married. We knew Michael had found a girlfriend and had moved out, but was he getting married? It was quite the surprise for us. But after meeting his bride-to-be, it all made sense. Emily, the person my friend married, sure was a character with strong quirks. She identifies her occupation as a live streamer. "Girls as cute as me will always be in demand, no matter the age." Emily boldly stated this upon our first meeting, even though she's turning 35 this year. I'm not one to comment on someone's profession, but I was taken aback that she could confidently refer to herself as a cute girl at 35. While the rest of us were taken aback by Emily's boastful introduction, Michael was sitting next to her, nodding proudly. "We actually talked about wanting to become YouTubers as a couple, you know. But my company has a strict no-side job policy. They're so behind the times, aren't they?" I genuinely felt relieved that my brother-in-law's company had that policy, but I wondered if it was okay for Michael to be nearing 40 and still talking like that. As we listened with a mix of astonishment, Emily suddenly turned the conversation to me. "By the way, Christine, what do you do for work?" I wished she'd just leave me alone. Though I felt that way, I couldn't ignore her, so I briefly introduced myself. But as soon as Emily heard my story, she quickly responded, "Really? Doesn't that sound kinda bland? Are you actually enjoying your life doing that? Seriously. You guys seem to have such dull lives. It's a once-in-a-lifetime chance, you know. Gotta live it up or you're missing out." To top it all off, even Michael joined in with those remarks. With a concerned look on her face, my mother-in-law said, "Well, if you two have decided on this, I won't oppose your marriage. Just make sure you don't inconvenience others and work together to live an honest life." After my mother-in-law made her point clear, the two of them left in a hurry. I really wondered if those two would be all right in the future. Watching them leave, we exchanged worried glances. Michael was a handful on his own, and now there was another problematic person to deal with. Still, for my mother-in-law and David, Michael is a cherished family member just the same. We immediately began discussing how we should interact with the two of them moving forward. Despite our concerns, everything was peaceful for about a year. "Are you sure you're okay on your own? Wanna come live with us?" We had offered my mother-in-law to stay with us. However, she reassured us, "I'm fine on my own. Don't worry about me. I have plenty of friends around here. Just focus on living a happy life together." Indeed, my mother-in-law is sociable and has many friends in the neighborhood. But she's already 63 years old. While folks in their 60s these days are still quite spry, we can't help but worry about the what-ifs. With these thoughts in mind, we visited her that day. Then, to our surprise, Michael and Emily had come over. In the year since they got married, they hadn't visited the house at all, yet now they were lounging around as if they owned the place. "Oh? David, you guys are here too? What's the occasion?" "We come over every week." When David said that, Michael gave David a look as if he wanted to say something, but then turned to my mother-in-law and said, "All right then, take care." With that, they promptly left. "What were they here for?" Then, David asked my mother-in-law, but she replied, "It's nothing really." She didn't seem inclined to talk about it at all. Michael's last words had piqued my curiosity, so I chimed in, "You say it's nothing, but there must be the reason." "What was that?" However, the mother-in-law just gave vague answers. "Please, if there's anything going on, let us know anytime." In the end, we told her that and headed home for the day. That evening, David received a call from Michael. "David, it seems like you guys visit Mom quite often. Could you stop?" He blurted out such a thing unexpectedly. When pressed for an explanation, he said, "You guys must be busy with work, right? Emily is working from home and will take care of Mom. So, just stop coming over." Then he abruptly hung up the phone. They've been married for a year, and after not seeing her for so long, this sudden demand seemed suspicious. What on earth is Michael thinking? Driven by our concerns, we visited her the following weekend. And, sure enough, Michael and Emily were there too. The moment Michael saw us, he looked irritated and said, "What do you want?" "I told you, we're gonna take care of Mom. There's no need for you to come." We tried to defend ourselves, but my mother-in-law's subsequent words left us speechless. "David, Christine, thank you for always coming over despite being busy. But, as Michael said, from now on he will be visiting. So, you two enjoy your weekends." To our shock, my mother-in-law was siding with Michael. Hearing this, a smug-looking Michael said, "You heard what Mom said, right? If you get it, then get going." With that said, we were kicked out of the house. We couldn't believe it, but if my mother-in-law says so, there's nothing we can do. Still, concerned for her, we started calling her more often. "Everything okay? You're doing well?" Every time, she'd reply, "Michael is visiting, so I'm fine. But how about you two? You having a good time?" She seemed more concerned about us than herself. "We're having fun, but we'd like to see you from time to time. Can we come over this weekend?" "I've already made plans with Michael this weekend." "I'm sorry, maybe next time." In the end, she'd always decline our visits. We didn't mind what Michael said, but when my mother-in-law pushed us away, it felt like a rejection, making us a bit lonely. Then one day, after days like that, David received another call from Michael. "We're gonna move, so there's no point in you coming here anymore." David was at a loss for words with the sudden news. Michael was about to hang up the phone. In a panic, I quickly asked, "Why are you suddenly moving?" Michael, with a sharp click of his tongue, replied, "You guys haven't been to the house recently, so you probably don't know. Mom's going senile. We're worried about leaving her alone, so we're building a new house and moving." My mother-in-law is becoming senile? That can't be. She was fine the last time we spoke on the phone. But Michael snapped, "You only talked to her briefly, right? How could you tell from that? She's got dementia. That's what's going on." And with that, he hung up. We hurriedly called my mother-in-law and asked, "Are you feeling all right? Everything okay?" But she simply replied, I'm fine. You don't need to worry about a thing." And then she hung up. What on earth is happening? That weekend, we hurriedly headed to her place. Naturally, Michael and Emily were there. "You're back again? I told you not to come anymore." Michael approached us with a sharp click of his tongue. "How can we just sit still after hearing such news? We're worried," I replied, but Michael snapped, "Shut up." However, my mother-in-law just listened to our argument with a smile and a nod. I couldn't help but look at her and whispered her name. Michael, having heard that, said, "I told you. She doesn't make sense anymore. We can't leave her alone, so we're taking her in. That's our kindness. You get it?" He said it with a smirk. "If that's the case, we can." But before I could finish, Michael interrupted, "Both of you work, right? What are you gonna do with this senile old woman during the day?" "Don't talk about her that way," I blurted out. But, in fact, no one is home during the day in our house. I couldn't argue that point and just remained silent. I just stayed silent. It's frustrating, but maybe we have to do as Michael says for now. Feeling utterly helpless, we said, "We'll come visit on our days off." Upon saying that, Emily then replied, "If you come over that often, it'll be such a bother for me. I really don't like it." With her usual lisping way of speaking. The thought of leaving my mother-in-law with someone like her. I exchanged a worried glance with David, but he just looked down and shook his head. Whether my mother-in-law understood or not, she just kept smiling and said, "It's okay." Later, we got the moving schedule from Michael and reluctantly headed home. Come moving day. When we arrived at the in-laws, we were told that the packing was just finished. Emily remarked, "If you were gonna come, you should have come earlier and helped. Bad timing on your part," but when we peeked inside, there were still many items left. "There's still a lot of stuff here," I pointed out, and Michael replied, "We don't want to take this old junk with us. We're gonna toss it. A few pieces of clothing are more than enough for an old lady." Both Emily and Michael were saying such things together. "Hey! Stop it!" When I yelled in frustration, Michael shot back, "Then you guys take care of her," and they both jumped in their car. As they drove off, they threw a bag containing a few of my mother-in-law's clothes out the window, shouting, "Good luck with the old lady. Bye." They left us with those parting words, then coolly drove off to their new place. David and I stood there, dumbfounded. Yet my mother-in-law just kept smiling and nodding. But today, my mother-in-law wasn't wearing her usual absent-minded smile. Instead, she had that sharp and slightly mischievous grin I knew so well from back in the day. As I looked at her, puzzled, my mother-in-law waved cheerfully at their car. Then she said just one thing. "They don't have a home anymore." What? No home? What on earth was she talking about? Looking at David, I saw he was just as bewildered, staring at my mother-in-law. But ignoring our dumbfounded faces, my mother-in-law briskly picked up her bags and said, "David, Christine, how long are you gonna just stand there? Come on, let's go inside and have some snacks." "What do you mean?" She just looked back at us with a smile full of glee and beckoned us to the entrance. Once inside, she explained everything to us. What we learned was utterly astonishing. The reason why they recently came to visit her house. And her scheme upon discovering it. Each piece of information was beyond our wildest imaginations. A few months back, they suddenly showed up at her place. There was an instance when my mother-in-law stepped out for a bit, and she overheard the two of them having an argument. "Are you sure this is really okay? Hey, keep your voice down." Feeling a sense of foreboding, my mother-in-law discreetly listened in as Michael said, "That old hag must have stashed some cash somewhere. If we play our cards right and end up living with her, we can take over her assets." But I really don't want to live with your mom. For the money, we have to bear with it. If only she goes senile, we could hand her off to David. That would be perfect. We get the cash, and let David take care of her. I wonder how we can make her senile. Is there a way to hasten it? It seems that for the first year of their marriage, they had a great time living together in their rented apartment. However, after a year of reckless spending, they blew through their savings, and Michael's salary wasn't enough to support them anymore. Emily claimed to be a live streamer, but she hardly had any fans and was only broadcasting to a handful of viewers out of self-satisfaction. Naturally, that meant no real income was coming in. With their day-to-day life becoming more challenging, the two even resorted to borrowing from loan sharks. Desperate, they plotted to get their hands on my mother-in-law's assets. My mother-in-law was widowed young, but as it turns out, my father-in-law had been in real estate. Taking over, my mother-in-law turned out to be quite wealthy from the real estate business. Upon overhearing this conversation, she thought if she passed on the assets as they were, it would ruin the two of them. If they wish for it, then I shall oblige and play the part of the forgetful one. With that thought in her mind, she decided to feign dementia to scare the two of them off. Unaware that she was just pretending to have dementia, the couple brazenly started discussing their plans to take over the assets right in front of her. No way, Mom's really lost it, huh? Emily, did you do something? Of course not. Maybe my wishes worked. But what are we gonna do now? If she's gone senile this early, will we actually get the money? Don't worry. First, we tell her we want to build a house to live together. That way, she'll build the house and put it in my name. Then, we say we need extra cash and get another $100,000. I bet if we play up the dementia angle, David and the others will say we should take care of it. Once we have her blessing, we can pass her off and live it up in our new place. How about that? My plan's bulletproof, right? Yeah. Sounds awesome. But do you really think it'll go that smoothly? Don't worry about it. She's out of it, and plus, David and the others are so annoyingly righteous, it'll be fine. It's scary to think they were planning all along to dump her on us after securing the new house and the money. But my mother-in-law, even hearing this, didn't panic and continued her preparations calmly, pretending to be confused. We were like, if you had just told us. But she said, I didn't want to involve you guys. Sorry for the worry. My mother-in-law said that, laughing. However, hearing this, a question popped up for us. Wait a sec, but what about the house? When David said this, my mother-in-law chuckled, you'll see soon enough. It's about time, isn't it? Right at that moment, the phone rang. It was Michael. When my mother-in-law answered, he shouted, what the heck is this? Michael is yelling. They're telling me I can't live here because it's a rental contract. That's awful. You tricked us. Emily joined in, making a scene. Turns out, there was more to my mother-in-law's plan. My mother-in-law had conspired with a realtor, an old friend of her late husband, to prepare the new house they had bought to be rented out instead. And today, she was waiting on site for them. Moreover, she had inflated the cost and taken extra money from them to build a large parking lot, leaving them without any money to their name. With a smile, she informed them of this. Hey! I'm the owner of this house, aren't I? What gives you the right to do this? Oh? The owner? I seem to recall paying and putting it in my own name. You were supposed to be senile. Senile? What are you talking about? As you can see, I'm as sharp as ever. Damn you, old hag! I won't forget this. You'll never be forgiven. Michael was still yelling over the phone even now. But my mother-in-law, unfazed and calm, replied, Michael, knock it off. You're an adult now. It's time to stand on your own 2 feet. Relying on others and taking them for granted, making a fool of everyone around you. That's no way to go through life. After saying that, she nonchalantly hung up the phone. Additionally, she had already arranged for the movers to deliver the belongings not to the new house but to a rental storage unit. Her friend waiting at the storage facility, and she received confirmation that the belongings were safely delivered. I thought Michael's plan was diabolical, but it turned out my mother-in-law was even craftier. After that, Michael and Emily stormed into my mother-in-law's house, still fighting furiously. But since they were making such a scene when they arrived, we ended up calling the cops. And when the police showed up, Michael got violent with them too and got himself arrested for obstructing an officer in the performance of their duties. Emily, who was watching, exclaimed, "I didn't do anything," and then she just took off running. Even though Michael was arrested, he was released soon after since it was his first offense. With nowhere else to go, he was allowed to stay at the company dorm out of the company's goodwill, but the whole mess had become known at work, and he's feeling pretty small about it. But if he quits his job, he'll have neither a place to live nor any income. So, he's biting the bullet and desperately working. Emily asked Michael divorce and went back to her parents' house, but she's been disowned because of the whole ordeal, and I heard she's living and working at a nightclub now. As for me, after all that went down, I got transferred to a department at my company that allows remote work, so now I'm working from home. And so, we set up our new home near my mother-in-law's place and smoothly started living together with her. We've become really good friends with the real estate agent who helped us with the move and the neighbors around my mother-in-law's house, and now we even go out together as families. If only we had done this from the start. We chat about this, living peacefully day by day.